He runs forward, summoning a creature behind him, and someone asks Mare if she is nearby, to which she confirms. He orders her to protect him, and she readily responds and prepares to fight the monster. They breathed a sigh of relief when the monster with the third eye was defeated and shattered into pieces. Eldest son Wishart and big small estate owner Rutherford address each other as brother and father against the backdrop of a ruined castle. He accuses another of sending the girl to fight in his place and of defamatory his father's name. He said that he was not as strong as the other and did not want to quarrel with him, and the other replied that it was not proper for an aristocrat to behave like that. Father tells Noct that everyone has their own path and warns him of the upcoming fight, and Noct reflects on the need not to imitate his brother. A man with a determined look advises him not to turn off the path, and he listens to him without expressing emotions. The man promises to go around the property, and two young people argue with him, accusing him of constant mischief. The voiceover discusses how everyone has talent, and those who choose a job they love ultimately rule the country or the world. He thinks about his strict brother and his wise, kind-hearted father, a true aristocrat. He lies in a hammock and says that his talent is to die in any situation, and she replies that this is his path. He lies there and says that he doesn't want to work anymore because he already burned out at work once. Noct was working as an office worker in Japan when he felt chest pain and passed out one day in an aristocrat's house. He says that in this world, at the age of 15, everyone receives a gift from the gods, and when he receives his, he will be forced to fight. Noct celebrates his 15th birthday, but considers this day the worst in his life, and his companion asks for cake and reproaches him for trying to leave. He feels bad, tries to leave, but the girl asks him to stay and says that she made a cake for him, and another man watches them. She happily shows him the medicine, and he worries that he might get motion sickness and remembers the motion sickness medicine in his right pocket. He fell to the floor, and the other said that he was ready and that Noct had a chance to receive the gift and save the world. He hesitantly agrees, and the bearded man tells him to enjoy the moment. He exclaimed in admiration when he saw the capital with its tall buildings and falling petals against the sky. He is surprised that the hotel has hammock beds, and she notices that it is lively. He notices a dilapidated building and says that at least it's safe here, while another notes that it hasn't been renovated recently and the orcs aren't scary. He reflects on his carefree life and how everyone is hoping he will gain fighting skills due to the orc attacks on Big Small Manor. Noct introduced himself and entered, and the other man allowed him to enter without looking up from reading the documents. He stands in the center of the magic circle, listening to the instructions and noticing that he looks like his brother, which he finds frightening. He stands in a hall with arches and a shiny floor, holding a dagger and looking around carefully. He is surprised to find himself standing on water and admits that he doesn't understand anything as he looks at the glowing creature in front of him. He asks in surprise if this is a deity in front of him, and then thanks him for life in this world. He says that his father is kind and everyone loves him, his brother is stronger than any demon, and life, of course, is not so simple. He falls to the ground, begging to be chosen for anything but fighting skills. Noct asks if they're listening to him, and she says that her brother will inherit the estate and she needs a supporting skill. He asked in surprise what was happening, sitting in the hall with columns, while the woman watched him from afar. He noted with surprise that everything ended quickly, and his interlocutor said that he saw the successful acquisition of the skill. He asks not to touch the ball, and then tells you to come up and stretch out your hands to him. He coughs and asks if he is the son of an aristocrat, to which he confirms. He is surprised by his skill, and the other explains that he is under the weight of other people's hopes. He watches the magical vortex created by the other man in the cylinder, concentrating on the expansion and contraction spell. He thoughtfully asked if it was possible to increase and decrease. He asks if the skill can be used in combat, and she replies that it is clear from the name. He, with black, tousled hair, nods and says he understands, and the other one promises to try to be of use. He apologizes for bothering you, explaining that two skills rarely match, and then decides to go his own way, assuring you that everything is fine. He lies inside the cart and laughs, and the two people sitting next to him also laugh in response. He lies down and thanks the goddess for the opportunity to rest, and she and the girl ask if anything good has happened. He says he bought souvenirs for his brother and father, and she says she got useless skills, but her brother will still be angry. Noct says he bought jewelry for the maids and a figurine for his father, but she thinks her brother without an eye patch will be just a dandy. He explained that he was going to Big Small Manor, and she asked where he was going, after which he said goodbye. Noct is sorry, and she is surprised and asks about Big Small, noting that he is there too. He stands among the ruins and looks at the destroyed city against the backdrop of mountains and clouds. Noct returned and noticed the destruction, after which someone greeted him, expressing joy at his return. He asks in horror where his father and brother are, noticing the destruction and the wounded man, and she wonders what happened to them. He says that the defenders fought bravely for the estate, but they have not been seen for 4 days, and he does not believe that they could lose. He reflects with regret, and the other admits that he would not even like to think about it, but most likely it is so. Noct admitted that it was hard for him to talk about it, but for now they are gone, and the elderly woman asked him to forgive her. He said she would have to take the reins, holding her hand. A desert landscape with ruined buildings and mountains in the background, shrouded in smoke and dust. He looks at the destroyed landscape with smoke and a cart in the background with surprise and alarm. The old man asks Noct about the skill he acquired that will determine their fate, and Noct asks everyone to look at him with a serious expression. He explains that a small rock can grow to the size of a horse with his skill, and finds it incredibly convenient. He asks with a smile how this will help them, and the others listen to him with surprise and concern. He asks Noct what they should do now, and he agrees that in this case his skill is right. Noct suggests temporarily going to a neighboring domain, and another character clenches his fist and regrets not asking for a combat skill. He warns that the escape of the estate owner is unforgivable, and that the death penalty is imposed for his actions. Noct says he won't blame them for the decision and asks the others to decide whether to stay or go to their neighbors, noting that they are the only ones left. He reflects on the impossibility of life without his father and brother, assuring that the pursuit of them will soon end. 3 people discuss what to do next, and one of them thinks about protecting his land and methods of protecting it. He decided to take a nap lying under the blanket while others watched him. The man and she look at each other silently, expressing confusion and bewilderment. He sleeps, and the old man explains that in sleep the secretion of saliva decreases, and the girl listens to their conversation. He despairs and says he can't handle it alone, while another remarks that this is the end for the Big Small estate. She looks forward thoughtfully without saying a word. She quickly runs down the hallway and reaches for the bucket standing by the door. He said Noct had been asleep for 12 hours, and she doubted he fully understood the situation. Mare asked in surprise, and the man advised her to go to the neighboring property. He says that there is nothing left except the estate, there are no resources or food, and the walls are destroyed, which is why monsters can attack at any moment. He assured her that no one would blame her, and she listened to him with surprise. Noct stretches and says that a good night's sleep takes away fatigue, and the old man greets him good morning. He regretted that the situation was not suitable for jokes, and the other admitted that it was as if he had been reborn, causing bewilderment in the old man and the girl. He thanks Joseph and the mayor for staying and asks for help in getting his life back before his father and brother return. He with black hair offered the other to be his support, smiling and asking a question. She confesses to Joseph that she wants to help the lady, and he is surprised that she can talk about such a situation. He smiles and says that they have nothing to eat, and she looks at him with a comb in her hand. The man complained that they hadn't eaten anything since yesterday, and she quietly agreed with him. He collected all the edible things, and another noted that the supplies were taken away by living residents. Noct explains that he is on a diet and asks not to be shy, and Joseph and the girl discuss how to divide the food between the 3 of them so as not to eat it all himself. He said he could increase it, and she replied that she would use the skill while they were sitting on the floor in the room. He listens thoughtfully as the 2 explain that they are able to make objects larger or smaller. Noct sits in the center, while the other two watch as he casts the spell, Enlarge. He says with delight that he has succeeded, but this is still not enough, and she is amazed by what she sees. Then they show him standing over the growing object. Noct forcefully declares that the world is mistaken if it thinks he is fit to rule, causing surprise among those around him. She thanked Noct for the opportunity to eat her fill, and he responded with a smile. He said he would have to somehow make do, sitting next to her on a stone surface in the open air. She pointed to the property next door, saying it seemed so small, and he responded in surprise, Against the backdrop of a ruined settlement, they tell about the Bigsmalov estate and its inhabitants, the owner and 2 residents. He says that the lands have fallen into disrepair and there are only 3 of them left, and the other one laughs. He notices that the dinner is full of greens, and the servant says that she has prepared a lot of different recipes so that everyone can eat their fill. 3 discuss the health benefits of Mamortica and how to prepare it, noting its bitter taste and effect on blood glucose levels. He noted the bitter taste. She advised refreshing herself with pickled Mamortica, and the 3rd acknowledged that spicy food is good for the liver. He consoles the elderly man, and she apologizes for her cooking skills, worrying that she can't cook anything. 3 people are discussing the ripening times of vegetables. One of them says that arugula ripens in a month, but the leaves can be eaten after 14 days, and they will have to eat ice cream for 2 weeks. She stopped abruptly with a knife in her hand, and the man asked in fear what she was doing. Noct discusses the mayor's strange behavior with others, and she admits that she wanted to be helpful, but is criticized for being lazy and reproached for trying. He is lying in bed and smiling, and another person tells him that it is time to sleep, but they have a lot of work. Noct enters a room where a man and woman are discussing important issues of the domain and asks for his help. He asks what is stopping a person on the path to success, and the interlocutor expresses bewilderment. Noct explains that for maximum effect, a person needs food, and the old man asks him for a pen, warning him about the importance of following this rule for the quality of sleep. He writes that the most important point is the prohibition of eating Mamortica, and gives this point the highest priority. They decided to split up and go looking for food, discussing their plan of action on the street in front of the house. He orders them to go and check Sammy's fields and Joseph to inspect Lawrence's plantation. He decided to better explore the capabilities of his skill by observing the calm and weak jelly slime on the field. He lies on the ground, noting that the pillow is firm, comfortable, and murmuring, and then confirms his thoughts. He screams in surprise when liquid is unexpectedly poured on him, and in his memories he hears that he smells like strawberries and was born to be a pillow. Noct is surprised to see the jungle, and another character says he shrunk himself. He is surprised when a large bird tries to eat him, but thinks it's nonsense. He hugs the large, furry bird-like creature with delight, amazed that it actually exists. He exclaimed that his futon had flown away, and then marveled at the softness of the feathers, noting that nothing could compare to it. He falls onto the soft ears of grain and reflects on new pleasant sensations and a world full of discoveries. Noct happily says that his new bed is a wonderful world for his tiny self. He sits on the grass and says that it is too hot around, although it was nice before. She asked in surprise what he was doing and remarked that Noct was so cute, to which he reacted with fear. She explained that the broken fence had caused the fields to be overrun with monsters, and he replied that he was learning a skill and asked what she was doing. He asks the mayor to arrange it so that Joseph does not find him, and she, with a smile, promises to fulfill the request. Noct lies on the ground and asks to turn off the sun, and 2 girls in maid costumes happily agree to help, noticing the unbearable heat. She asked if they were hot while he lay on the ground next to the creature. She asked Mr. Noct if it was any better as he looked down at her. He notices that she is strange, and the other one says that it is not normal because he sees everything. Mayor fell on the hay and the girl asked him who he was talking to, while the man asked what he was doing. He is outraged that they are forcing him to show his underwear, and she says that her father would be unhappy, and he replies that he did not ask her to do this. She asks not to blame the gentleman and says that she tried to cover him from the sun, but he insists that she finally cover herself. Noct abruptly tugs the arms of two people who ask him to stop, explaining that they are having an earthquake. He reassures the other that the scratch is not serious, and she apologizes for the injury and asks to show the wound. She casts cellular activation as she touched the leg of the man sitting on the rock to heal it. He thanks the mayor for her help and remarks that he now looks as good as new, and she smiles, saying that there is not even a trace left. She asked what skill Mayor had, and he replied that it activated cells that accelerated natural wound healing. He thinks out loud about the cell activation skill and its application to vegetables while three others work in the garden at the big house. She casts a spell with concentration, and a small sprout emerges from the ground, barely noticeably sprouting. Noct admitted that things weren't that simple, and she asked him not to go to bed because they still had work to do. He woke up from the noise and asked what the sound was while lying in a hammock under a blanket. She shouts, "Concentration?" and "cellular activation," with effort, performing vigorous movements, and he watches her in amazement. He suggested that she might have eaten something wrong, but she admitted that she was indeed strange and decided to stop at 10 attempts. She carefully says that Noct should not go hungry, and he wants the sprout to grow big. He remembers what happened 10 years ago, and she says that she must repay him for what happened then. A warrior orders the girl to be brought in, threatening to lock her in a dungeon, while another tries to calm Sammy, who is being held by two men. Noct tries to free himself from the shackles, and he asks her to forgive him and stops the man with the club. He offers to compensate for the damage by selling one of the souvenirs and asks how they feel about this offer. He thanks and says that he will deal with the problems himself, and the other one asks Noct in surprise why he is doing this. He explains that a family must protect its subjects, and another asks what he will do if she does bad things again, to which he replies that she will become his personal maid. He asked Mayor what his name was and then apologized and said that he had important work for him, after which Mayor reacted with surprise at the unexpected event. He asked if his interlocutor could cope and ordered his bed to be prepared. She says decisively that it is now her turn to save him, kneeling next to a small flower. He watches the sparkling plant, and she stands in the distance, looking at him. Noct looks forward with a serious expression as she and another character watch something out of frame. She greets Noct, and he invites her to try again. He stands still and she exclaims that cell activation is occurring. She felt someone touch her neck and a shining clover lit up nearby. He said, "Grow!" and the plant started growing rapidly, and she reacted with surprise. He says he's happy to have people like her and Joseph around him. He extends his hand and says that, as always, he relies on them. Noct agreed and they resolved the food issue, despite the comment about Noct's strange behavior. He's sleeping in a hammock in the garden, and a man calls Noct and Joseph, saying it's time for dinner. The hero lists the dishes: vegetable soup, fried asparagus with beans and peppers, and fried avocado and arugula without breading or batter. She happily offers more, unsure if she's carrying too many plates. She says she has to study because of the many ingredients, and he notices that Mare is behaving inappropriately at the table. She smiles and promises to try harder and better in the place that was provided to her. He asked about meat. The old man answered that vegetables were good, but he wanted meat, and Noct thought that it was okay. He asks her to stop joking, and she threatens with a sword to carry out the order immediately. Noct casts the Earth Shield spell while standing in the square opposite the girl with the basket. He uses magic to move a large stone block, explaining that there is magic in this world besides skills. He explains that he has a talent for earth and fire magic and mentions the 6 elements: fire, water, wind, earth, light, and darkness. He concentrates on directing energy with his hands, trying to light a fire near the fence near the building. Noct waves the flame in his hand and says approvingly that he is doing a great job. He says he can finally enjoy the warmth, and she jokes that he is the fire god's favorite and suggests he rely on himself. He enjoys a hot bath, calling it a spiritual delight and a real desert for himself, while another man watches from behind. Noct smiles in the bathroom and asks what else is needed to be happy, and the man and woman are surprised, not believing that nothing else is needed. She admitted that she wouldn't mind a chamomile scent, but the little character inside the apple wanted a sweet, fruity smell. Noct warns in the bathroom that dreaming about the impossible will only make things worse, and the man explains that this is the first time his lenses have fogged up so much. He asks in surprise what they are talking about, and the man and woman happily confirm that there will be a sale tomorrow. The man in the cloak says that he had a good relationship with the father of his interlocutor, and the man in the suit adds that the merchant rail will arrive tomorrow. Noct listens as she tells him that upon his arrival everyone went off to take a lunch nap, and calls him an incredible person from whom you can order anything. He looks forward in surprise, and she hides behind him with curiosity. A man offered food or a bath to those rested after a long journey, addressing a group of people near a cart. Noct introduced himself, and the other asked if he was the new owner of the lands. He listens as the woman tells him that she and his father have been getting along well for a long time. He apologizes for his words and admits that he takes advice from the father of his interlocutor, who smells like mint. Noct is surprised by the elegance while another man offers to buy something and suggests getting down to business. He offers to ask for anything, assuring that he has everything his heart desires, while the other one nervously fusses next to the suitcase. He is surprised that there is anything in the suitcase, and the other man thinks that he does not have such a pillow. He asked if they had a cleaning cloth for their glasses, and she replied by calling Pico. He enthusiastically replied, "Of course," while others watched in amazement. She shows off a chamomile fragrance, and another person happily exclaims that this is it. He said Pico, and made a hand gesture, causing the boy to react in surprise. He looks at the ringing phone in surprise, and she turns away, not wanting to answer. He exclaimed joyfully, holding a large bag in his hands, while a small man fell to the ground nearby. He is surprised and agrees to pay 5,200 gols after hearing the price of the goods on the counter. He counts the amount and says it is 3,000 gols. He panics and says that something is missing, while others discuss the pillow, the fragrance, and the napkin. He looks at them, and they are frightened and silent, not knowing what to answer. He tries to say something but stops short, turning to the owner. He says with effort that he must do something, and she happily confirms their agreement. He lies in a hammock and thinks about the events of this night, while silence and darkness reign around him. He quietly called Rael, who responded in surprise, peeking out from behind the curtain. He asked her to simply call him, and she replied that it was an accident and offered vegetables, for which she received gratitude. Noct asks if they are sure and offers to use the beds in the mansion, and the interlocutors explain that they are used to spending 3,000 gols on a night's lodging. He offers to use the bath for 3,000 gols or per person, and another person asks about the bath with surprise. He asks if she thinks creating a bath is his calling at the moment, and questions his calling. He confidently stated that the creation of the bath was the will of heaven. He was surprised, and she said that if that was the case, they would never appear here again. He says they will skip the bath because they are tired, and she demands they turn off the light and the cigarette. He notices the smell coming from the monster and exclaims that it is impossible. He acts cautiously, and another character warns that if he enters the bath, he will be defenseless. He asked in surprise if it was just a slime in front of him, noticing movement in the bushes. Noct explains that there are almost no monsters or inhabitants, and the woman, shocked, asks why Rael won't come again. He explains that their land is incredibly dangerous and there isn't even a fence on it. He apologizes for the wrong priorities and the construction of the bath, and the old man warns that without visits to Rael, things will be bad, and no one will come for trade. He worries that he won't be able to buy a pillow, and the old man explains the importance of exchange for land development. Noct strongly suggests building a fence to prevent Rael from visiting them anymore. He assures her that he has a plan, but she doubts that the three of them will be able to cope before the morning. A man with a monocle shows off his muscle gains by lifting heavy logs. He looks thoughtfully at the starry sky and says that with the help of Joseph's Titan. He explains that they are building the fence at a speed of 10 meters per hour, but there won't be enough time or resources before the morning. The man with the mustache says that after so much sweat, a bath will be especially pleasant. Noct is surprised, and she looks at him questioningly when he is perplexed and says, Vanha? He turned to Tan Joseph and said that he had been visited by an ideal thought. He asks Pico to wake up, and he asks again in surprise. He greets Rael, who dropped his wand and watches him silently. She thanks Mr. Rutherford for his help and regrets that she cannot do anything in return. He wonders why someone in a difficult situation would be creating a bathtub, and she thinks it's much worse than she expected. He reflects that without fences this place and property can hardly be called a property, and the burden of being a ruler is too great for him. He lies with his eyes closed on her lap, and she gently waves a twig, making sounds to calm him down. He reported that Rael had arrived, lying with his eyes closed, listening to this with tension. He explained that he combined the skill with earth magic, and the other noted that they were lucky to make it before morning. They discuss how the skill requires a lot of effort and is too convenient, even though at first glance it seems simpler. He is amazed by the scale of the building and does not believe that something like this can be created overnight. He said with relief that everything was fine now and he could go home. Noct asked if he wanted to put it all off until tomorrow, turning to his interlocutor. He reflects that tomorrow may be too late, and she thanks him for the knowledge she has received. He admitted that it was too dangerous here and he didn't want to think about not being able to protect them. He is surprised and silent, and she says that he has realized his purpose. He asked everyone to stand up and hold hands, then told Rael that he wanted to show them something. Noct and the others are surprised by the appearance of a huge elevator face, discussing whether there is anything else that can surprise. The image shows a large open-air bath on the wall, which someone is talking about with admiration. He explained that they could feel safe there, and the other was surprised to hear that they were unable to take a bath again. Noct listens as another character explains that a merchant must have an important quality. He asks if anyone can determine the price of money, and the other explains that he must be able to determine the value. He explains that in their case, they determine the more important value by showing a shiny object on the palm of their hand. He admitted that he was only thinking about the safety of his property, and his interlocutor noted that he did not think about how to bring joy to a person in such conditions. Noct listens as the old man says that he understands the full value of the girl he is looking at. He listens in surprise as someone says they will come next time too. He stated with a smile that there would be a bath first, while Noct and the little girl looked at him in surprise. He noted with surprise the musculature of the other, who replied that it was with his permission. 2 people play in the water, enjoying themselves, while 3 watch with smiles and raise their glasses. They discuss the guy's strange behavior, noting that he doesn't look like Mr. Rutherford, which makes him interesting. He said that his father had been working on restoring the property for a month, and that thanks to joint efforts with the mayor, the food problem had been resolved. He explains that with the help of earth magic and skill he was able to build the walls, and Rael will continue to trade with them. He touched the wall, which began to crack, and thought about his next step. Behind the fortress wall, someone can be heard calling people human resources. He is surprised, and she says through a telescope that Rael is showing P, and the migrants are riding with him in a cart. Noct and the others discuss that their revival is now complete, and he is glad to finally be able to fully laze around, warning not to overuse their skills. One of the characters asked Rael how he was doing while they were standing in an open area next to a horse. He said he had brought 4 migrants, and others were surprised and asked if it could be a joke. He showed a souvenir from the capital while children played near the cart and a woman walked with a child by the hand. She asked if he was a beast man and received an affirmative answer, after which he reacted with surprise to her words. Noct greets and comforts his interlocutor, noticing the sadness in his eyes and explaining that they were not slaves, despite their suffering and unfair condemnation. He asked Olivia's name, and she asked again in surprise. He introduced himself as Noct Big Small, and she invited him to introduce himself, calling him Doll. He explains that the dwarves are already adults despite their height, and that they only became adults recently when the dwarves suddenly fall forward. He listens as 2 hooded men introduce themselves. One says it's Rog, The other says it's Gilena. He notices the ground has sunk as two hooded figures stand nearby, watching the scene. She tries to say something with embarrassment and effort, blushing and sweating in a hood with an ornament on her forehead. Noct apologizes after the old man's remark, and the two children defend the normal average weight and are surprised by the weight of the weapon. He says that a family of dwarves participated in the construction of the tower, and there are many people in the capital who want to migrate, noting them as first-class carpenters. He wonders why such masters wanted to move to that very tower. He was surprised when two children suddenly broke a log, and one of them sheepishly tried to explain. She states that she wants to look at the world around her while standing with her eyes closed and her hood raised. He reflects that they have their reasons and hopes that thanks to them it will be possible to restore the houses, while asking his sister why she is so cruel. He happily says that he saw the Capitol Tower for the first time, and she silently spins in place in a hood next to another person. Two small characters at the cart confidently declare that their deeds can be divine. He is surprised, and the two little ones discuss that dwarves love everything big and call the object big and divine. He is amazed by the detailed model that another shows, saying that his sister designed the tower. He noticed that she was happy and noted it to himself. He says he was impressed by the Capitol's tower, and she asks in surprise what kind of reaction this is. Noct explains the guarantees, and the woman mentions the food supplies, expressing gratitude for the decision to stay with them. He cast a magnification spell, explaining that his skill was working, even though it was mostly vegetables. She exclaimed in surprise when she noticed the fangs and asked what it meant. He was surprised and asked where she was running and then wondered why she was so excited. He watches in amazement as she forcefully pulls a radish out of the ground and admires her power. She asked if something could be enlarged, and he asked again, clarifying her suggestion. He cast an enlargement spell, and one of the girls was surprised and asked why it was not possible to do that. He looks at her in surprise, and she breathes heavily and holds on to the edge with effort. He is surprised when the girl with ears happily calls him daddy and takes his hand. He noticed that she looked like a fox, and she replied that she liked vegetables. He happily agreed, and she said that they were lucky to have an owner who turned out to be a good person. He asked how they could repay, turning to the girl and two children next to her. He says there is no point in doing something you don't want to do, and she enthusiastically promises to grow vegetables. Noct reacts with surprise when two children suggest he should rest his sides every day. He asks about the problems, and one of the girls reminds that only those who want to work, and expresses disappointment due to hopes for the restoration of the property. He says that without his work it is impossible to be lazy, and his interlocutor is surprised by his talent and does not understand what he is talking about. She urges them not to give up and says that she doesn't believe that they don't want to work, hinting at their desire to create. He asks her not to make fun of his brother, and she says that children shouldn't hear adults talking. He, with his black, tousled hair and bangs between his eyes, reacted with surprise to the words of the girl with ears, who said to work if they are adults. He called her a slacker and a pest, and she replied that it was a good try for a dog and lazy. He reflects on those who take gifts for granted and are not afraid to be worse than walking corpses. She screams that she can't take it anymore, accusing the doll of constant excuses and demanding that he stop, and the other woman asks him to stop and asks where the money will come from. He reassures her and she promises that she will work. Noct praises the doll for her efforts, and she looks at him touchingly, holding his hand. He thanks her and asks for something, to which she replies that she can do anything, just not talk about building a house. He asked if it was an office and replied that his father had used it. He notices the cracks in the walls with concern and calls out to family members by knocking on the door and addressing them by name. He stands in an empty corridor, surrounded by a strange distortion of space around him. Noct quietly knocks on the door and asks if it's too noisy to repair the crack, and someone inside calls for his sister. He asks in surprise if someone will take everything before bedtime while another person is preparing something by the wall. He entered the destroyed room and quietly said, "GI," noticing the debris and traces of blood. She frightenedly admitted that she had done nothing, and the other replied that it was her own fault. He stands in shock at the door, watching the man in the cloak lying on the floor in the destroyed room. He stands by the bookcase in his father's office, thinking that this place is more than just a workspace for him. Noct happily runs to his father and sits on his soft chair, and his father invites him to jump. He says that he will sit for his brother when he grows up, and another man asks for help for his brother and advises Wishart to stop using the pacifier. He recalls that this is the place where the three of them spent a lot of time, standing next to a chair on which two children were sitting. He watches two figures at the ruins, one standing by a stone and the other standing nearby, looking towards the destroyed building. He watches with alarm as she, hooded and with a third eye on her forehead, speaks with difficulty, her hand shaking. He asks what the noise is as two hooded men hide fearfully behind some broken furniture. He explained that there were hunters among those willing, and they agreed on the condition of a roof over their heads, after which she replied that everything was clear. He asks what it means to be a feudal lord, and she replies that then there would be meat. He said that you should never turn your back on your people, even if they are terrorists. He walked up to her and said that he had finally found her. He offered to sit next to her, and she asked if he had come to scold her. He admitted that, as a local owner, he also makes mistakes, and she asked if his hand had trembled. He called the other stupid for believing an excuse, and she admitted that she simply doesn't know how to do it. He complains that he can't control his strength and hit the hammer where he needs to, while she watches his clumsy blows. He listens as she explains that she ran away from home and wants to build something big, the highest goal for any dwarf. He's shocked and says, "Holy shit!" after noticing something unexpected. And in the background there's another character in a hood. He is surprised, asking if the bridge is too steep and what needs to be done to make it sway. He looks forward thoughtfully, and she remarks with a smile that the bridge is made of sand and should be like that. He asks if she likes large buildings, and she replies that she understands the values of the dwarves, but prefers to create small models. He told her he wanted to sleep all day long, and she replied that she dreamed of creating a place where everyone would do only what they liked. He was surprised to hear that she could fall asleep in 3 seconds and acknowledged it as an incredible talent. He looks at the model of the house in surprise, and she asks him to look. He admires the precision of the model house, and she confirms it with a smile. He created a magical barrier in front of the house, and the others watched what was happening in surprise. He explains that he can use his magnification, and she is surprised that her model has become so huge. He called the site pathetic and asked if it was a dwarf or someone else, and also stated that the model could become a full-fledged house. He grabbed her hand and she looked at him in fear, surrounded by other characters. The two on the balcony are saying that the doll will live here and it seems like she likes it, and he is listening attentively. He is surprised, calling his sister, and she admires the interior decoration and says that this is a place for her favorite business. After a few days, he runs quickly through the grass, hiding in the movement. He quickly runs after the fleeing rabbit across the forest clearing. Noct hit the tree, sending the small figure flying, and someone asked what he was doing, turning to him. She says she doesn't want to be alone, and he assures her that everything went exactly according to plan while two people watched them in the woods. He noticed the deer and noted that this is expected from hunters and praised their work. In a clearing, bees swarm around a hive, preparing to attack or defend themselves. He cast a fireball spell and she made a presentation to the others, standing next to Noct with her bow at the ready. Two children discuss how Gylena has made their domain so much more beautiful while a fawn listens intently. He said there was a good catch today, showing the catch that two others were holding in the forest. Two men are rejoicing that after a month and a half, meat has finally appeared, and in the background stands a girl with hanging carcasses. He asked in surprise, and the other three decided to go home and cook something tasty. He decided to follow them, hoping to cook and eat food right away, and suggested eating here, noting that the view was beautiful. He tells Greg to stay and make a fire while he calls the others, and she agrees that the scenery here is truly wonderful. No one is visible. A cauldron and a frying pan hang over the fire, steam rising from them. He said with a smile that he had reached the pinnacle of bliss while standing next to a source of steam or water. A group of people watch as a huge piece of meat and a cauldron hang over a fire, preparing to cook. A man with a monocle offers Joseph the biggest piece, and he happily calls it his sunshine. He noticed with alarm that the dish served was hot and trembling, warning the other man about it. He suddenly catches and throws a large piece of meat, showing dexterity and determination. He says with a smile that he doesn't regret anything, lying on a soft surface. He is surprised to hit the ground and notes that he feels no pain. He asked in surprise if there was another gorge beyond the gorge, and then admitted that it was pleasant and understandable. He reflects that thanks to this big girl, he managed to survive after falling from the cliff, marveling at her size. Against the backdrop of a huge giant woman, 3 characters watch her, amazed by her sudden appearance. He warns of the giant's approach, and the others look warily in his direction. He looks at her in surprise, and she says with a smile that the food is delicious. She is surprised by the desire to eat more, but he firmly forbids her to do so. He holds her hand tightly, trying to stay on the edge of the cliff, and says that he will not let her go. He explains something, and she listens in surprise, not expecting to hear what she says. He says that everyone should enjoy a piece while the others listen to him with different expressions on their faces. She apologized for eating someone else's meat, explaining that it was very tasty and she was very hungry. He said magnification, and they watched in amazement as the object suddenly grew larger. She happily eats meat while others around her cook and enjoy the food, not noticing him with a plate in his hands. He is surprised that this is the first time she has eaten such a delicious dish and asks what she ate before, and she explains that the sauce is fruity and the water is sweet. He explains that giants are large and courageous creatures, confirming the name. He is surprised to see her eating local monsters and ponders about it. He agreed to make the portion bigger, and she hopefully asked if she could add more. Noct is tired and wonders why he is the only one tired while others say they can't take it anymore and their stomachs are full. He says goodbye to Berdina, saying that it's time to go back, and she sadly agrees. She started to walk away, saying bye, and he and the other girl looked after her in surprise. She declares that she wants to live with them, and he, surprised, asks if she really wants to live on his property. He and she hold hands, looking around in surprise at those around them, who look worried and tense. He panics and asks Berdina to stop, but she insists despite his objections. He watches her quietly, and she suddenly stops and looks forward with a determined expression. He said that there would be a lot of problems with her size while she listened to him attentively. He stands before the large figure and remains silent as those around him watch their meeting. He asked if everyone lived here, and she replied that this was the land of the Big Smalls. She exclaimed joyfully that it was great to be little, and he replied that he could enter any house while the others watched. He reflects on the rightness of his actions and on the girl's family as she runs happily ahead, and the little girl and he follow behind. He muses that there was no rejection when using the ability and wonders if she was okay with it, turning to Noct. Noct said he was tired and would go to bed, then decided to return everything to its previous state, while the girl with long hair pulled a bucket from the well in surprise. He said that the excursion would be tomorrow, and she excitedly asked him to take her. 3 girls are discussing the need to take a bath and change clothes. One of them wonders what a bath is. He is surprised when she suddenly wakes up and calls him by name. He was surprised to hear her voice and heard her wish him good morning. He asked about Berdine. She answered in the affirmative, and a maid came in the door with fruit and called Nocta. She greets Mare in surprise, who is sitting in bed with another woman, with a sword stabbed into the foreground. Noct with a shadow around him asks if she will make excuses while another one with a knife and a third one smiling watching them. She exclaimed joyfully, calling the plum, turning to the interlocutor. A little girl happily calls out to her brother, and a woman greets Noct good morning at her house. Berdina explains that this is the doll's garden, and he asks how the vegetables are, after which the doll shows the largest vegetable. She offers to try the vegetable, noting that giants don't eat them, but in moderation they are very tasty. He said the fruit was delicious, but she was surprised that it was sweet. She waves off the praise of vegetables, and the man tries to get her attention. He asked if she loved daikon so much, while she was laughing and a girl with a huge daikon was raising it above her head. She eats with pleasure, and he asks in surprise what is happening. The image shows a star effect accompanying sound or movement, with no visible characters. He looks at her in surprise, holding the ball, and she explains that this is their only hope of salvation. He and she look up in surprise, and the two with ears, also surprised, raise their hands as if defending themselves. He asks in surprise if this beast howling at the moon, which is described as a dangerous inhabitant of the forest, is a wolf with blood-red eyes and silver fur. He notices that Luz and Greg are outside now, but they shouldn't have been so close to the property. She resolutely told him to go, and he looked at her in surprise. He shouted that they were under attack, and she felt the presence of Greg and Luz. The image shows a view from above of a river with a bridge and part of the city with houses and gates. He rubs his head, and she prepares to attack the approaching wolves with her sword. He uses the skill against the huge beast, and she screams his name in alarm. She kicks the monster hard, holding Noct tightly to her. He says Berdine's name tensely, and she looks at him in surprise, raising her hand to her face. They walked forward, and he noticed that he was always being watched. The image shows Noct, with white eyes, standing tensely, preparing for action, while another character warns him of approaching danger. He explains that they were simply scared and ran away while the two listen with concern. He wonders where the silver moon came from, and Noct and the others discuss whether the orcs drove them away. He suggested that something had happened in the forest, and she replied that they would not be able to sleep peacefully without finding out the reason. He stretched and said it was time for a nap, and she thanked Berdine for making sure everything worked out this time. She claims to know where a very tasty fruit grows, and he tries to stop her, shouting, "Stop!" He noted that the interlocutor's house was rather wild, while everyone was standing together at the entrance to the cave. He warns her about the fruits in the garden, and she offers to sit down and promises to bring them soon. For people enter a cave, one of them wondering where to sit down. They discuss the presence of 3 chairs in the room, surprised by their number. He asks what the fruit is called, and she replies that it has no name, and they discuss how the fruit looks like grapes and might be tasty. He tastes the food and notices that it has become less sweet, after which he asks to try it again, and she asks to wait a second. She enjoys the taste, and he explains that the large fruit has a low concentration of sweetness when squeezed. He asked Berdina if she was against it, and she tried it for the first time and said it was delicious, and he suggested brewing alcohol using special equipment. Noct thanks him and says the doll will be happy too, while the other man tries the food and calls it delicious. She thanks him, saying that they spent a short time together, but it was fun, and he listens with a surprised expression on his face. He says that the wolves always watched her but did not approach, and the 3 listeners are surprised and call her Berdina. She explains that the last time their eyes met, the animals ran away, and the disappearance into the forest is due to her shrinking. She firmly declares that she will stay here and protect them. He enlarged the girl who said Noct was too small and he was too big. She happily asked to take care of the doll and the others, turning to the group going into the forest. He listens thoughtfully as the girl says that since she decided so herself, he closes his eyes, accepting her decision. Noct said it shouldn't be like that, and she refused him while the others watched their conversation. She asked in tears and surprise what had happened, looking at the man with black, tousled hair. He smiles and says that the doll will cry if he doesn't come back, and the 2 listen to him with serious expressions. She says she doesn't know if she can protect them next time and that being with them will put them in danger, and he objects. He promises to protect everyone if danger arises, and she admits that everyone else is her inhabitants. He extended his hand and offered to go home together. They decided to move on, but remembered about souvenirs and the need to bring as many as possible. He suggested giving the fetus a name since it was awkward when it didn't have a name, and she agreed with that. She asked in surprise if they would all be together. She shyly says that they are perfect for each other. He suggests checking compatibility with the others, and she agrees, mentioning Olivia, and someone turns to Noct. He says Joseph's name with concern, and the man with the mustache tries to say something, with the girl standing between them. The man informed Noct that a tax inspector had arrived, causing him to react tensely. He and she discuss tax collection and the tenacity of landowners despite the threat of orc attack. The man explains that the tax inspector sets the tax amount and they have no right to refuse to pay it. The man reassures Joseph, telling him not to worry, while Joseph and the girl listen attentively. Noct said he wasn't going to pay a penny, and the other man asked to just watch while the woman behind him admired him. He introduced himself and addressed the inspector in a friendly manner, noting that he was probably tired after a long journey. He asks for them to be exempted from tax for this year, kneeling and bowing his head. He, with a mustache and a monocle, looks attentively, and she, with short hair and a headband, looks surprised. He said with determination that he was not against it if it would protect the peaceful life of his residents. He noticed that his interlocutor's shoes were slightly wrinkled and began to clean them, causing her to react with surprise. He noted that he didn't understand something, and she acknowledged the great work they had done and said that everything was clear now. He asked where such huge walls came from, and Noct listened attentively, without looking away. He sits on the sofa and says that they are considering the possibility of supplying unique big resin products. She offers to try the nadir fruit, noting that she has never seen anything like it before and carefully tastes it. He explains that they are considering growing and producing sweets and alcohol, and she listens, covering her face with her hand. He listens in surprise as she indignantly says that you can't make something sweet while others watch their conversation. He, standing at the entrance, said that it was time to leave, and the other three listened attentively, looking at the open gates and the cart behind them. She warns that among those who received the skill there was a person with an unusual ability, and he wonders if there is anything else. He noted that he had hit the nail on the head, and she responded that a country that relies on the strength of one person will sooner or later fall. He said she was a terrible person, and she replied that he was kind. He said that there are now many more of them, and if he is gone, the residents will have to cope on their own. The man wipes away a tear, and the woman smiles and says that he has matured so much. 3 people are discussing lifting the hunting ban and starting production, while one of them is holding a bow, and another man with a cat on the stairs is smiling. Residents discuss how the steady supply of food, clothing, and shelter has increased the number of Bixmal holdings. The old man loudly calls for Mr. Noct, who is sleeping peacefully, hugging his pillow. He lies in bed, and an elderly man reproaches him for idleness and asks what his father will think when he returns. He explains that he worked hard with Meir to create the sweetest onions and tomatoes, despite his lack of skill, and demonstrates the process of seed reduction. He convinces Joseph that the onion is indeed sweet and delicious while she tastes the dish with pleasure. She admitted that she had habitually treated them like a doll and asked for forgiveness. He asked if they were hungry and confirmed that they had plenty of vegetables. He asked if they cooked outside, and she replied that cooking in the sun was much more pleasant. He cooks and then creates a fireball by directing it into the oven. He watches in surprise as a girl with ears and a tail says she has cooked dinner, while another girl carries bread and wheat. He woke up and immediately sat down at the table to the sounds of cooking while someone nearby poured a drink. He lies there smiling and she approaches, saying it's pure bliss and starts the conversation with "Also." She said she smelled Noct and he reacted with surprise. Noct notices that Berdine is sleeping again, and the others discuss doing it again. He looks silently at the plate of Napoleon with sweet onions and tomatoes. The crowd is celebrating happily, and he asks in surprise what all the noise is about, while she remarks that it is like a holiday. She explains that their vegetables are unique and can be grown by anyone, causing surprise in the elderly man. The man apologizes for the morning, and Noct is surprised and asks what is cooked, noting the taste of onions and tomatoes. He asked what had happened in the morning, turning to the old man and the girl next to him. He noted that there was always noise and fun around, and she replied that it was not as much as when her father was around. He explains that they have been to different places, and she says that because of this the doll became very timid when they came here. She says they've finally found a place where they can breathe deeply. Two people look at each other and one asks in surprise why the other is looking like that. He thanks everyone while someone shouts that they don't touch him, and others argue and point at each other on the street. She says that she will pray and try to make sure that history does not repeat itself and that everything continues forever. Two people look forward in surprise, while the other two exclaim, turning to Noct. He asks in horror why this is happening, looking at the many strange handprints on the ground. He, with his black, tousled hair, is convinced that they have been gone for 4 days, but the old man doubts it and says that he would not like to think about it. He notices the orcs approaching and thinks it's happening again. He warns with concern that they might attack again and strongly denies it. He clenched his fist and worried that they would definitely come, asking himself what he should do. He holds back his emotions with his eyes closed, his lips pressed tightly together. He asks another to be in his place, reflecting on the role of a father or brother. They greet someone with a smile. One says they haven't seen each other for a long time. Against the backdrop of a large house, he lies on the ground, as if unconscious or resting. The group stares at something in front of them in surprise, not saying a word. The group discusses the tracks on the ground and doubts that orcs are capable of reconnaissance and thinking like that. She explains that they have a leader and suggests that it was a general. He noted with alarm that the orcs were scary and ate animals, and the children also nibbled little by little, like cattle. She asks in surprise if this is true, while evil creatures make sounds in the background. He asked if she had been attacked, and she said it was terrible, and the man with the wound on his face was surprised. He asks in surprise how exactly, and she replies that it is exactly like this. He asks Berdina to slow down while she runs through the door. He suggests that everyone decide for themselves whether to go into the forest or give up everything, noting that they have already done a lot. He clenches his fist and says that he cannot give orders like a brother or father, expressing internal conflict and doubts. He is surprised. She smiles, then he takes her hand, expressing support and tenderness. He asked about the plan, and she called the Baron, waiting for an answer. He heard someone turn to him and say that everyone wanted to listen to him. He explains that he is not capable of anything alone while the others listen attentively to him in the room. He asks for help to protect their home together. He noticed that someone was strange, and she agreed, watching what was happening at the door with the others. She is delighted with the beautiful stones, and two children call their sister, showing her the furniture drawings. He asks Berdina why she is going for meat again, even though she just ate, and she replies that she is not going for meat and wants him to make her big again. He says he will become much stronger, but she doubts it, asking if he is sure about it. Noct asks if she wants to be with them, and she trembles and tries to answer. She says it's more important that everyone is alive and well, and he says it's important, but she asks to fulfill her request with a gentle expression on her face. He praised the girl, calling her cool, and lightly patted her on the head, addressing her by the name Br. She laughed cheerfully, making a hee-hee sound. He shouted an enlargement spell, aiming it at a girl with long blonde hair, while another watched the scene. He gives her an object and orders her to break through the wall, and she responds approvingly. A black-haired hero overhears a girl asking to be made big so she can fight, while another asks if it will be hard to control herself. She looks around in surprise when she hears a sudden sound behind her in the empty room. He anxiously reports that they are walking while two people are walking towards each other and the girl is standing behind. The image shows a field of grass and trees against a sky, with no visible characters or dialogue. He and his companion look over the wall in surprise, and the other two, noticing this, exclaim that it is the same. He interrupts his speech, showing a necklace with sharp pendants around his neck. He said he expected this outcome and both looked worried. He counts out loud, while the other one ponders why the father and brother did not return, and comes to an understanding of the situation. Two people watch as a muscular, beast-like alien walks up to them, and one of them remarks that he is surprised to see orcs watching him closely from a height. Noct screams and throws the bag, and he is surprised and asks what it is, promising to do everything in his power. He bows deeply before the group, expressing great respect and repentance. 3 creatures jump over wooden barriers, and one of them orders to increase speed. He shouts with effort to continue, and the 3 listeners are surprised by his confidence to do as much as he wants. She urges Noct to retreat and help the victims, warning that victory will be meaningless if something happens to them. He smiled and admitted that she was right, standing against the backdrop of a fence and 2 men. He looks with fear at the approaching armed creatures behind the barbed fence with hanging bodies. He, clutching a knife, prepares for battle, and then challenges the monster to come to him. He tries to tie a bandage on his head despite the threat of attacking orcs. He ordered to protect him but was refused when someone grabbed the sword. He explains that the sword only increases its power during the cut, but this allows for balance and increased power. The interlocutors discuss how Noct spends a lot of energy on complex skills, but with minimal effort achieves maximum effect using a simple sword. He suddenly noticed something in front of him with a look of fear and then on his face. He prepares to attack the monster with a knife, and she shouts at him to be careful. She calls out to Noct, who is standing in the distance, while the horned creature tries to stop her. He says with amazement that he can't believe he stopped the press while looking at a huge demon with horns and a crown. He is terrified by the unexpected strength of the bare-masked creature that has grabbed him by the throat and tries to understand what is happening. He says tiredly that he really wants to sleep and that he has done enough. He says with tears that he tried and asks if it is true. A man in a chair holds 2 children as a giant eyeball image appears around them. The father says that now there will be a lesson about monsters, and the little boy happily reaches out to his brother. Noct remembers that orcs are afraid of fire and is praised for it, while another character says it's time to wake up. A hero with horns fights a woman, while other characters joyfully exclaim that he is alive and express relief. He thanks the help in remembering and wonders who he is, while using magic to enlarge the object. 3 orcs look up warily, while 2 humans on the roof ask for a larger image. She uttered the word in surprise, while the other one held back her emotions by covering her mouth with her hand. He casts a magnification spell, creating a huge vortex in the sky, and she watches in amazement. The image shows an evil demon with horns and fangs making ominous sounds. She declares that she is repaying the debt, and the creature with horns and fangs makes a sound of surprise in response. The orc king, crying and wiping his face, said in fear, "Ooh!" as the smaller orcs scurried around him. The pig-headed king cries while holding the doll, causing the crowd to look at him with surprise and fear. They desperately ask not to touch her, watching a menacing creature with a mask holding a small bundle in its hands. Noct throws the saw vigorously, watching its flight with concentration. He moved forward quickly, waving his long cloak as if preparing to attack. He is breathing heavily and appears exhausted as he lies on the bed with his eyes closed. He breathes heavily and expresses fatigue by making sounds that resemble sighs. She breathes heavily and says, "Mare? Cell activation." In a tense atmosphere, he realized with surprise that he had slept for 3 whole days. Noct said he was a dream genius while Mayer was sleeping, and she continued to use her skill. Nocta announces the start of the work and activates the cells to self-repair while he watches the events unfold. He suggests that she first rest, and then promises her lunch for the 3 days she missed and invites her to lie down in his bed. He says they need to find whoever did this and leaves, despite another man asking where he is going. He looks forward with a smile, and then the door quietly opens and someone comes out of the house. He joyfully exclaims that Noct has regained consciousness, and she thanks Dr. Dahl for her help. He explained that the doll was not a stone, but a doctor, while the girl with horns was surprised and repeated that the doll was not a stone at all. She cried out, calling for Noct, who noticed the earthquake and began to use a shrinking spell. She cries and apologizes for her weakness, and he smiles, listening to her confessions. He asked to enlarge it, and she thanked Guylan for his help at the cemetery with the cross. He says that after the increase it will not remain the same. Noct apologizes and returns something, admitting his weakness and explaining that he had to fight at full strength. He said that his father always refused when he felt lonely and wanted to sleep with him, and admitted that he had never seen his father sleep. She tosses the child into the air, remembering her father's words about working for the family and noting that their inhabitants are family and have found a rare fruit. She says that she will protect what her father protected, and he promises to protect them as the Baron of these lands. The crowd celebrates Noct's victory and restoration, while he and the girl with ears enjoy treats at the feast. He said that he was glad that everything ended well, and the other noted that they managed to defeat the strongest orc and now there is no danger in the forest. Noct dismisses the question of selling land with a smile, while a group of people discuss the news in surprise. He decided to try to make his father and brother proud of him, and she approved and said, "Good, increase." A group of people stand around as one prepares to sign, discussing economic recovery. The young man announced the opening of the first store in the Big Smalls estate, attracting the attention of those around him. He says alcohol is a panacea, and the two little ones argue that it should be a tavern. She exclaimed Noct's name and called him the savior of lives. She suggests catching rare animals and breeding them on a farm, but he says that they don't need a farm, but meat and everything else. He ponders the best choice for sleep, deciding that eating until he's full and going to bed is also a great option. She suggests Noct say, calling it a healthy breakfast, and he agrees. Noct announces the opening of the inn, while others object, shouting about meat, alcohol, and guests. She said with surprise that the invisible hand of God. He asked in surprise what was going on, and she looked at him attentively, holding a branch and something else in her hands. She says they have nothing to sell, and he is outraged and offers to buy everything they need from Rail. She explains that the catch was sold to a store, reviving the economy, and another one with ears is happy that the store will sell meat to those in need. He declared with determination that he would restore the free market, addressing the people gathered around him. He explains that they will sell exclusive goods, attracting traders from neighboring lands and, if necessary, build an inn. He offers to divide everything they valued equally, while the other agrees to give everything to the Baron first. He enthusiastically says that using their skills they will be able to achieve a lot, and when they make a fortune they will introduce a land tax. He explains that he managed to avoid paying taxes this year, but will have to pay them next year, and she, shocked, repeats the word tax. He tries to explain something to the group, and she looks at him thoughtfully, arms crossed, surrounded by other listeners. He offers his sister to build a tavern, but she doubts she can handle it alone. He listens to her say they have no money and then remembers she ran away from her family. He announces with a smile that each of them will receive $1 million. A group of people discuss that this should be enough for their plans, confirming the initial words of one of them. He promises to provide full support and asks to contact him if you need anything. He addresses the others, and she silently looks across the table with coins. He tells the group that everyone came for different reasons, perhaps some of them escaped, and that they overcame the orc attack. He announces to everyone that from today their property becomes a free market, and the rest listen attentively to his words. A man with a serious look warns not to shirk, and a group of girls joyfully raise their hands and shout in response. He says they need to decide where to build, and she shows a map of the Big Smalls holdings and suggests choosing a location. He looks at the town thoughtfully, and she advises him to better remember what he saw. He says he will build his own city from scratch without copying it exactly, and is glad that he visited the capital at least briefly, advising people to settle there. He shows the map and says it's the best option, and she's surprised to see that everything is too small. He explains that the first store will be a branch of Rails, and she thanks him for making his dream come true. Then she asks why he drew the house so small. He asks if the place on the map is right, and she is happy that it is perfect and not small, while he is doubtful. He complains about the long way from the doll's house with all the turns, and she worries about her brother's store. He looks at the map and says that this is the best option, and Noct reacts to his words with interest. He points at the other person with a serious expression, showing determination and tension in the atmosphere. He He panics and asks who is this person standing next to him. She happily declares that the new resident of Runer is not at all dangerous and calls Pico by name. The man said that Rail would become a new employee at the branch, and the boss would open his own store in the city and promised to advertise the big Resins holdings. He loudly declared that he was the director while she joyfully ran forward with shining eyes. He asked the other person if he was sure, and he replied that it didn't matter. He asks why she thinks this place is the most suitable. He explains that it is better to open a store where people gather, and this place is suitable for both residents and visiting guests. He confirmed that he had thought about it too, and the other admitted that it was too small. He said thoughtfully that he would like to recreate a city similar to the capital, and was not sure whether it was worth thinking only about current plans, and the other answered doubtfully. He explains that the capital has been built over the years and has become what it is today, and she believes that residents should also think about current needs. He believes that development will go well, but one must be prepared for changes, while another notes that he is only scary in appearance, but his words are full of wisdom. He said he heard about the conversational skill from his boss, who replied that there was no need for it. Noct lies in bed and thinks that this is like one of the games from his past life. He explains that he can move the field by decreasing it, offering to build a store in the vacant space, and she regrets the loss of the first field. The order to increase was given in the store, and attention was focused on the fruit counters. A boy with black hair offers carrots to the first customer, and a girl with ears announces that her brother's shop is already open. He praises her for the delicious harvest. She is surprised that he sold what he grew, and the third offers to take the goods to the store. He says it means economic recovery, and she happily promises to try her best. A group of people gathered outside an open building, discussing the creation of the ideal hotel. Two men discuss terms in front of a floating clock, one of them holding his hand thoughtfully to his mouth. He explains that the lecture takes 10 years, but thanks to their skills the journey took only 7 days. One is delighted with the rare vegetables with a high sugar content, while the other wishes good luck and offers to sell them in Ciora. He said with his eyes closed that in the coming days an influx of visitors and traders wishing to purchase products is expected. He said it was time for that and thoughtfully noted, which means. He listens in surprise as she calls the creation of a hotel her cherished desire. He explains with a smile that Joseph would have started to grumble if it had been built first, and two listeners react to his words. He assures that he will support her, despite the difficulties in the free market and the question of who will sleep without him. He asks Ghislaine to help and build something, and she begins to explain her point of view. She explains that this only applies to normal dwarves, holding a large hammer behind her back. He proposes to decide who will run the place, and the two argue and accuse each other of being incompetent in accounting. He asked what happened to Joseph, and she said he was watering the fields, and he said she wasn't qualified for that role. They called her Olivia-san, and she answered Era. He offered to come earlier and join her for lunch, and she happily agreed to have a snack, despite the early hour. The tart with rare Mancholi cheese and Nadir fruit sauce sparkles, highlighting its appeal. He asked her if she wanted to become a hotel manager, while the others listened at the table with tea and cake. He wonders if taking care of his mother will be too much of a burden, and she assures him that the doll will take care of her, noting that he was previously busy with something. He is thinking about opening a pharmacy, and she notices that he has blushed and turns to him with a smile. One character calls her Hannah, the other calls her Felicie. Noct introduced himself, and the man explained that the Levi family used to run a hotel. The man explained that it had been a long time ago, and he offered to take over the management of the first hotel in the land of big resins. A man with a mustache says that a good hotel is the face of the land, and a young man listens to him with enthusiasm. The man and Noct were both surprised, expressing this with identical questioning exclamations. The man explains that the hotel symbolizes the end of the traveler's day and evaluates the big mall area through the quality of the hotel. Noct recognized Mr. Levy as the man and asked if he understood him. He confidently says that he knows exactly what he is talking about, and she replies that a good hotel is service from the heart. The man with the mustache announced the bedroom and eating area while Noct smiled and the girl with the ears looked confused. He looks in surprise at the man with the mustache, who slammed his hand on the table. He thinks the other one is crazy, but he doesn't want to upset her and understands that he introduced Olivia-san.